Okay, hello. So this is a supplementary video to make up for that day I missed. So what I thought I would do just quickly is just really explicitly go over the two argument forms from Lysias' speech and Socrates' speech, and actually lay out the structure of the arguments from those speeches. This is one of your quiz questions, so it's a two-pointer. So, here we go. The two argument forms. The first is inductive. Right? An inductive argument is an argument where the premises provide strong but not necessary support for the conclusion, which means that the premises can be true and the conclusion can still be false. We see that in Lysias' argument here, in which you recall in Lysias' speech he presented a problem with love. Lovers are jealous, right? Points out that that problem is not a problem with non-love. Non-lovers, jealousy isn't a factor, right? Therefore, non-love is to be preferable. So an inductive argument is one where the premises can be true, but the conclusion can still be false. So, and this is the structure of the argument: premise, premise, conclusion. Right? Make sense? Now, in Socrates' speech, when he strengthens Lysias' argument, he strengthens it from an inductive argument to a deductive argument. A deductive argument provides necessary support for the conclusion. That is, if the premises are true, the conclusion must necessarily follow. Right? So the classic example of this is all men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. Right? That's a classic example. Another classic example comes from the Phaedrus when, remember, Socrates winds up defining love. He says that everybody is ruled by two desires, right? The desire that through judgment leads to, through reasoning, to what's best, or, right, the desire for pleasure. Sometimes these agree, but sometimes one gets the better, the other gets the better, right? When it is the desire for pleasure that overcomes a person's better elements, right? He's given us a few examples, right? The first is when it's desire for food. The person who suffers from that kind of desire gets the name of glutton, and we call it gluttony, right? When it's desire for alcohol, the person who suffers from that desire, he just says, we all know what we call somebody like that, right? But when it is, this is on page 18 of your text, the erotic desire that gets the better of a person, it's the same principle at work. Your desire for pleasure overcomes your better elements. So he winds up defining love as the unreasoning desire that overcomes a person's better elements and is driven to take pleasure in beauty. It's force reinforced by desire for beautiful bodies, all-consuming, and its forceful drive takes its name from the word for force, which is called eros. Right? Amazing that I remember that for some reason. That's the definition for eros. Now, from that definition, basically, love, or eros, is a form of madness, or the translation I prefer is hubris. Right? Madness, or hubris, is bad. It's bad when these things overcome our better impulses. It leads us to do all of those things that Lysias was talking about, and all of those things that Socrates demonstrates is necessarily the case. Therefore, there can be one and only conclusion, that love is bad. Love is madness, madness is bad, therefore love is bad. So, that's one of the questions on your test. It's what I've done is I've laid out inductive, strong but not necessary support. The premises can be true and the conclusion can still be false. It's a weaker argument form. Deductive arguments provide necessary support for the conclusion. That is, if love is madness and madness is bad, there can be no conclusion but love is bad. It's necessary support. Right. Now, this is an early argument, and just as you're writing this quiz and thinking about this material, you should keep in mind that there are a total of three kinds of love that Plato discusses here. Right. The first is eros. The second is non-love. And the third is the Platonic form of love that he discusses in the third speech, which is named Socrates' second speech. Now it's confusing, but whatever. So keeping the distinction between these three kinds of love in mind will very likely help you navigate this material. So in that third speech, what he has to do is demonstrate that love, right, as a fourth kind of madness that is not necessarily bad, right? Remember, he gave us three kinds of madness: cathartic, poetic, and prophetic kinds of madness that are not necessarily bad, calling question to this premise. That's how you knock down a deductive argument. You've got to call question to one of the premises. Whereas in Lysias's argument, or any inductive argument for that matter, you can accept both of the premises, yet basically just say nuh-uh to the conclusion. Right? That's how the inductive argument proves to be a weaker argument than the deductive argument. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful. I know that was quick. Please email if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you soon.